I'm not doing the mock call, by the way. That is not. I'm not doing it.
Why?
Just not doing it.
Everybody's done it.
I'm not doing it.
Everybody's done it.
Not the question. Not the subject.
Bonjourno.
Bonjourno, Jason. It's Ben.
Welcome to SomeBlock, the series where we talk about everything sales, prospecting, and what to do during the slower and sunnier summer months. My name is Jason Meyer, and today we're joined by Ben Mouquet.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Ben. Well, thank you for making it here to our summer destination office in the exotic fourth floor of our office building.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, Ben, for those viewers that don't know you, you've been working for Cognism for the past 6 years already.
That's right. 6 years.
Right? 6 years. And you started as an SDR, and currently you're the sales director for France.
That's right.
So you want to talk to me a little bit more about that evolution of your career?
Yeah. I think I fell into sales like everyone falls into sales. Just pot luck more than anything else. Met the right person, made your introduction, and then ultimately one day to the next I had an interview with the VP of sales at the time for Cognism. I was apprehensive. I did studies to be able to do, unfortunately, investment banking or consulting. When I heard about what sales was and about how it's actually not all sunshine and roses, it's really rather difficult, but at the same time, the amount of effort you put in is where your career takes you. That grasped me, and obviously the financial aspect behind it. From there, SDR for a few months, worked like a dog, SDR manager for a bit, AE from SMB all the way through to enterprise. And then about 9 months ago, I got the chance to run the sales team for France. So I took it with two hands.
That's great. And we're happy to have you here in Paris with us, Ben. But were you working specifically for the UK market, or was it global, or was it French?
6 years ago, there was no territories because we had a small office in the UK. So we did everything, right? Which meant that as an SDR, I was able to get up very early into Australia, stay up very late, and do the west coast of the US. So there wasn't a patch necessarily, so everything and anyone.
Okay. You talked about working for both markets. Now, are there any specific, let's say, differences between English-speaking markets and French-speaking markets?
I think there's a multitude of differences that you probably don't think about when you first enter the market. Primarily, it's a cultural piece, also translation. I might be bilingual, but I wasn't used to speaking business French. So I'd say silly things like, instead of we didn't give you the proper training, it was you lack education. So I got in a lot of trouble for saying that because it's not very polite. But on the other side, it's more about the way they do business. So it takes longer to do business in France than the UK because it's more of a pyramid structure when it comes to senior leadership and reporting roles. In the UK, typically, it depends on the industry, but it's more of a flat structure. So that was the first shock. Secondly, it's the price sensitivity piece because of the way that organizations do budgeting in France compared to the way they do them in the UK or the US, for example. And equally, parent-child company relationships, that was mind-boggling to me.
Before we dive into, let's say, the more common sales blockers that people generally face during the summer, what are the most, let's say, general blockers or objections, right, that you face in general in sales?
There's a multitude of different blockers that you will face, but I think it's important to preface this conversation by saying there's 4 main buckets. So there's value blockers, or objections, as you quite rightly said, time objections, blockers. You've also got competition, and then you've got a weird bucket called process. So value blockers, for example, could be the cost of the solution, whether there's a need or a perceived need for the solution. You could also be talking about the potential ROI. So it's things that are related to need and the requirements, the spending behind it, right? Secondly, we talked about time blockers. So how often do we get the response, it's not the right time? Unless we understand what that means, because generally, a time blocker is masking another blocker, which is a common theme. So it's not the right time because we don't have the resources. So it's no longer a time blocker, it's a resource blocker. Then you've got competition blockers, which is, yes, competition in your space. So you're the direct competitor. But it's also a case of internal prioritization and the blocker that comes with that. So we're actually looking at a multitude of different solutions. That's internal competition. What's vying for budget, what's vying for time. And then thirdly, you've got inaction, which is also a competition blocker. because it's always easier to do nothing than action something. When we talk about process blockers, that's everything else that falls into it. So the perceived risk of choosing a new solution, change solution. You've also got elements that are along the lines of whether the company trusts you or not, whether you've got the internal buy-in and the right stakeholders. So what you'll find is there's only really value blockers. Everything else masks blockers that are made up of different elements that then get tied back to value. That's my opinion.
So, okay, that's awesome, right, Ben? But you touched on something that I find quite interesting, which is that what you call the time the bucket, right? So when people say, or well, prospects say, it's not the right time, you say it's usually masking something else. So how do you go about finding out what it is actually masking?
It's a good question. Ultimately, what you need to do is follow a framework that enables you to dissect the objection. To preface this, what we've got is, again, 4 different types of objection. So firstly, you've got indifference, then you've got factual, misunderstanding, and then disbelief. So indifference, essentially, you see that normally either at the beginning of a sales cycle, or you see it when you're engaging with new stakeholders. And it's generally just, I don't care. So an example of that was we were on a call the other day, and we were speaking to the CMO of an organization. She'd been roped in by the salespeople. She didn't want to be there. It was very evident from her body language. So her objections were along the lines of compliance and this and that. And she gave 3 or 4 objections. So at the end, we just dug into it. So, okay, so if, for example, the compliance angle wasn't an issue, would you be on board? And then she came up with 4 other objections. So the point is you have to, firstly, frame the objection. Then you have to probe, then classify the objection, and then handle it as appropriate before gaining agreement.
Okay, that's great and definitely makes sense. So now that we've covered, let's say, the more general ones, do you think that for, let's say, the slower summer period, you think you face the same ones, or there is new challenges to be faced during the summer?
That's an interesting one. It's interesting you mentioned earlier about working in different markets, because depending on the market you're working in, depending on the size of organization you're working with, and also to a certain extent, depending on the persona that you're tapping into, it does make a difference. So if we look at the company size, typically for small organizations, they're more agile. They move faster throughout the sales cycle. But if your champion, the signer, and the budget holder, which might be the same person, go on holiday, you're stuffed, right? Because no one's there to replace them. For larger orgs, it's more bureaucratic, but generally you have a fallback if your champion or your signer is on leave. If we look at geographic locations, if you look at the Nordics, for example, they seem to take the whole summer off. So unless you handle that in advance and you have a mutual action plan to be able to contour that appropriately, you're in trouble, right?
What are some practical strategies that you recommend for our viewers that can help them in sales in general, but especially during the summer period?
I'm a big fan of mutual action plans, which is a buzzword in sales. Everyone says it, but applying one is very different. So when it comes to summer months, as we said, people take holidays, especially if they've got children, for example, because that's when their kids are off school. So actually having the right set of questions and having the right plan together with the individuals involved in a deal, be that the champion, the budget holder, the signer, whoever, means you're able to navigate around those blockers again. So mutual action plans, ask the right questions. Who's on leave? If you're on leave, who do I go to? What have we got to action? What's our deadline? It's just making sure that you're aligned together with your deadlines, with the individuals who are responsible for each action, and then making sure that you apply.
Okay, well, that's great. Actually, I'm kind of hungry. I'm kind of hungry for a segment that we're calling The Call. Bonjourno.
Bonjourno, Jason. It's Ben.
Ben who?
You know, Ben from Cognism.
Oh, yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah, not so bad. I'm on my way to the airport because I'm running for holiday.
Yeah, I got your email. A very quick one. I know you're preparing for holiday. Just a couple of questions on my side, and I'll let you go. How does that sound?
Yeah, sure.
Good. All right. So initially, we were talking about our solution. Everything's good to go, all guns blazing. We had a couple of elements left, such as the signatory. Do you remember? We just had to get that boxed off and sent off for signature prior to the end of the month, which is in about 3 days. Where are we in that process?
But has it been approved by our compliance team already?
It seems that way from the last email I got.
Yeah, you're sure?
Yep. Susan sent me
I
an
must have missed that one.
If you want, I can. If I can FaceTime you, I can show you the email right now.
Oh, or can you just shoot it over right now?
Yep, if I send you that email and it's kosher, how about you give me the signatory now? And in process of that, I'll let you go on your holiday.
Oh my God, I think I have to sign. Okay, sure, just send it over. I'll sign straight away.
Super. Thanks, Jason. Where are you off to, by the way?
I'm going to Italy.
Oh, lovely. All right, well, enjoy. Have a caprese. See you later.
Okay, arrivederci, Ben.
Ciao.
Bloop. Signed, sealed, and delivered.
Nice.
Well, Ben, just have one last very important question. Any exciting summer plans coming up?
No, I'm running a country. Yeah, no, I'm teasing. I've got a couple of holidays across Europe, trying to get some sun. I'm going to the Netherlands, then I'm going to Portugal a couple of times, and then I'll just figure out from there, I think.
Okay. Well, wear some sunblock in the Netherlands. I heard it's very sunny. Anyway, Ben, thank you so much for coming and sharing your valuable knowledge with us and with our viewers.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching this episode of SomeBlock. Join us next time with another expert from our team to make waves in sales. Bye.